Hello, my name is Nico Schüler and I would like to explain on how to identify intervals from music notation. I will not discuss today on how to orally identify from listening. There's a separate video on that on my YouTube channel and I will include a link to it at the end of this video. So I will discuss on how to identify the distance between two notes. That's the definition of interval. Based on music notation. There are two steps one has to take. The first one is to identify the generic interval, and the second one, the specific one. The generic is simply the number of lines and spaces that are involved, or the number of letter names. So for the generic interval, we have to always do that first. We can disregard the clef and the accidentals, and we simply count the lines and spaces, including the one that we start counting on. So in this case, here number 19, 1 is the space, 2 is the line, 3 is the space. So this is a third. So we could write a 3 here. This is a generic third. This interval, we start counting on this D space, regardless of the accidental in front of it. So 1 is the space, 2 is the line, 3 is the space, 4 is the line, 5 is the space. So this is a fifth. So we count lines and spaces, including the one we start counting on, or we count letter names. So D, E, F, G, A. Excluding the accidentals again. So, and however many letter names there are, that's the generic interval. So this is a fifth, this is a sixth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or E, F, G, A, B, C, the C space, that's a sixth. This is a fourth, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a third, 1, 2, 3, or G, A, B. That involves 3 letter names. Since the clef doesn't matter for the generic intervals, so if we are in bass clef, it doesn't matter. It's the same procedure. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is a sixth. 1, 2, 3. This is a third. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a fourth. 1, 2. This is a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is a seventh. I will leave the last 4 on each of these sheets for later. So that is the generic interval. The second step, and it has to come second, is the specific interval. And for the specific intervals, we want to count the number of half steps. But let's first look at this table. This is a PDF file. I will make this available via a link in the description of this video. And although it right now includes diminished and augmented intervals, for now I will just focus on perfect minor and major intervals. So the perfect intervals are the unisons, or a repeated note. A fourth is a perfect interval, a fifth is a perfect interval, and an octave. The octave is an interval. So the seconds and thirds come in major and minor, and the sixth and the seventh come also in major and minor, or minor and major if we go from small to large. So a unison, a repeated note, of course, as a perfect unison, has 0 half steps. A generic second that has 1 half step is a minor second. A second that has 2 half steps is a major second. A third that has 3 half steps is a minor third. A third with 4 half steps, a major third. A fourth with 5 half steps is a perfect fourth. And now you see a fifth with 7 half steps is a perfect fifth. So there's actually 2 half steps between the perfect fourth and between the perfect fifth. Or in other words, there's a whole step between a perfect fourth and a perfect fifth. Minor sixth has 8 half steps, or in other words, a generic 6 with 8 half steps is a minor 6. A generic 6 with 9 half steps is a major 6. A generic 7th with 10 half steps is a minor 7th. A 7th with 11 half steps is a major seventh, and then an octave with 12 half steps is a perfect octave. So that's quite important here. Later in this PDF, they are sorted here from small to large. So perfect unison, minor second, minor third, major third, perfect fourth. They always increase by 1 half step, except between perfect fourth and perfect fifth. That's a whole step. And then from here on, they increase each in a minor second larger. So that means a half step larger. Perfect fifth and minor sixth are a half step larger, major sixth half step larger, and so on. All right, so back to these intervals. So we had previously identified this as a third, a generic third. It involves 3 letter names or 3 lines and spaces. But now we want to count the number of half steps, and for that it would be good to look at a keyboard. So I pulled one up online, but let's first, so we are in treble clef, so it's F to A flat. Now I go to my virtual keyboard here. And so we had F to A flat, F to A flat. Now when we count half steps, of course we count from the first note to the second note as 1 half step. Meaning if we were to count keys, we don't count the first one. That's different than counting the generic, the letter names or the lines and spaces. For the generic interval, there we do count the first one. Here we don't. So from here is 1 half step, 2 half steps, 3 half steps. So from F to A flat is from F to A flat is 3 half steps, and we said a third with 3 half steps is a minor third. Back to this sheet, we identified this as a fifth, 5 lines and spaces, or 5 letter names. More specifically, in treble clef, this is D sharp to A sharp, D sharp to A sharp, and so if you count number of half steps from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so a fifth with 7 half steps is a perfect fifth. This is a 6. We identified this as a 6 letter names or 6 lines and spaces. More specifically, in treble clef, this is E to C sharp. E to C sharp, going to the keyboard, E to C sharp, counting the half steps from here, from F, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we have a sixth with 9 half steps is a major sixth. And the next one is a fourth. More specifically, it's from F to B, from F to B, from F to B. So starting on F, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 half steps. So we go to our table, look at a fourth that has 6 half steps, and we see, that's our augmented fourth. I have not said anything about diminished and augmented yet, so I will do this now. When we have, let's say, a perfect interval like the fourth and make it 1 half step larger, it becomes an augmented fourth. Or if we make it 1 half step smaller, it becomes a diminished interval. If we have intervals that are common, major, and minor, then the diminished interval is 1 half step smaller than the minor, and the augmented is 1 half step larger than the major. So within, let's say, the thirds, the diminished third has 2 half steps, for example, from C to E double flat. It's not that common, but it can happen. Minor third would have 3 half steps, for example, from C to E flat. Major third has 4 half steps, for example, from C to E. And augmented third has 5 half steps, for example, from C to E sharp. E sharp. So diminished and augmented intervals are not that common, but they occasionally occur. And here we had one from F to B, that's an augmented fourth. Last one in treble clef, this was a third from G to B. We identified this as a generic third. It's from G to B, G to B. We start counting half steps from here. 1, 2, 3, 4. A third with 4 half steps is a major third. Now let's do a few in bass clef. We identified this as a sixth. It involves 6 letter names or 6 lines and spaces. It's in bass clef from C to A, to our keyboard here, from C to A. So we start counting half steps from C. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 half steps. So a sixth with 9 half steps is a major sixth. Here we have a third from a generic third, involves 3 lines and spaces. In bass clef, that's E to G sharp. E to G sharp. Number of half steps is 1, 2, 3, 4. So a third with 4 half steps. Again, it's a major third. We had one in treble clef earlier. Here we have a fourth from F sharp to B in bass clef. From F sharp to B. F sharp to B. So starting to count half steps from F sharp. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 half steps. So a fourth with 5 half steps is a perfect fourth. Here we have a second, a generic second. It's from E to F. Here we have E to F, and we can see that's 1 half step. So very important is actually to consider that where are the half steps. If we would write notes on the staff without accidentals, no sharps, no flats, where are the half steps? They're between E and F and between B and C. All the other ones have 2 half steps because they have a black key in between. So that's quite important to remember. So between E and F and between B and C are the half steps, so that if we are in music notation and we have no accidentals, we know right away between E and F it's a half step, which means minor second. And the same with between B and C. For example, between B and C is a half step, a minor second, right? Here, one more. We identified this as a seventh. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's from D to C. Back to our keyboard. From D to C. Starting counting half steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 half steps. A seventh with 10 half steps must be a minor seventh. In fact, we could also count what is missing toward the octave. If we know in a perfect octave there are 12 half steps, that means from D to C there are 2 missing, so that means 12 minus 2 is 10 half steps. So we could also think of a complementary interval to fill up the octave. So that would be a faster way to do it. Anyways, now let us, back to treble clef, let us test you. You test yourself. You can now pause this video, identify the last 4 intervals here in treble clef, like I did. First the generic interval, second the specific interval, and So after you have identified them, unpause the video and I will tell you the solutions. So pause now. The solutions are E flat to F major second, A to B flat minor second, D sharp to B a minor sixth, D to C sharp a major seventh. We can do the same with the last four intervals here in bass clef. Consider bass clef. You pause the video, identify first the generic interval for each, then the specific interval, and then once you have done that, unpause the video and I will tell you the solution. So pause now. Okay, the solutions are C sharp to E minor third, B to A sharp major seventh, A to B major second, C to G perfect fifth. So I would encourage you to leave me some messages in the comment section of this video if you have questions or if you would like me to do a video on something specific. There's actually one more thing that I want to point out. If you are very good with scales already, if you know major and minor scales very well, you can also use your knowledge of the intervallic structure within a scale to identify intervals. So you just have to think of the scale, in this case C major, from any first scale degree, the tonic, to the second scale degree in any major scale is a major second, from the first to the third note in the scale or third scale degree. So major third, then from the first to the fourth note is a perfect fourth, perfect fifth, major sixth, major seventh, perfect octave. We can do the same with the natural minor scale. So consider the accidentals, B flat, E flat, A flat. All again from the first to the second note in a minor scale, a natural minor scale is a major second. From the first to the third, a minor third. First to the fourth, a perfect fourth and perfect fifth. Minor sixth, minor seventh, perfect octave. We can also do that with the descending scale, which really only helps us very well with when we construct intervals, because when we identify intervals, we could always start on the lower one and go up. But if we construct, let's say if our task is, here is a given G and you are supposed to construct a perfect fourth below this given G, then you could think of a major scale from G down to the fifth scale degree, and that would be a perfect fourth. So in the G scale, that would be D. Of course, here it's notated in C. So from the first to the seventh scale degree, minor second, from the first to the sixth, minor third, and so on. And in a natural minor scale, we have the major second, the major third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, major sixth, minor seventh, and perfect octave. But again, that would be more helpful for constructing intervals with one given note when you have to construct or you have to find the second note for a specific interval. And there will be a separate video on constructing intervals. So again, leave me some comments and wishes for what kind of video you would like to get. Good luck with your studies and have a wonderful day. Bye.